What is up, guys? You got NotTheWorst here, bringing another Black Desert online video, and today we are taking a look at a complete PvE guide for Succession Dark Knight. So I want to put all of these things together into one comprehensive guide, also including the new UI we have for the skill points. If you're looking for a specific section, there will be timestamps for each section for different things, skill rotation, what have you, in the description or the comment section down below. So you can head on, jump over there if you're looking for something for specific. If you want to check out the whole guide, we're going to go ahead and start off with the skill build. So the skill build for Dark Knight Succession, you pretty much want everything in the Succession skill tree. You can get away with accessing it sooner than having absolutely everything by sacrificing a few things, but we're going to want everything at some point. You can definitely lean back on Prime Obsidian Ashes for quite a while, as you're hardly ever going to use that, especially early on and almost never in PvE other than pulling mobs. And also Ravage Rake depending on some situations, but we'll get back into that in a little bit. Ideally, you want to have around 1,700 skill points to max what you're going to want for this pretty much across the board. Things that I have pretty much everything maxed, as I have infinite numbers of skill points for this class to start with, but I'm going to touch base on the things that you actually want to have here to focus on, and those are mostly going to be the prime skills. Unveiled Dagger is an important skill. It doesn't necessarily need to be max leveled or anything like that to actually be useful, as what we're using this mostly for is the attack speed increase that's on it. That's going to be very important for us. So if you are a little bit lower in skill points, this can be sacrificed from being, maxed out by any means. Hidden Strike falls into the same category. This just kind of gets used and is kind of irrelevant in most cases in general, but if you've got the points, you might as well have it. We do indeed want Prime Airstrike learned as well. Slanted Balance is going to be very important as well. Pervasive Darkness. Ravage Rake we do want at some point. Again, this is one you can hold back on if you don't have enough skill points with it. The Flow is also nice to have along with the Absolute. You'll get multiple hits across using each of these. The Absolute is in regards to the Flow. Obviously, you can't have the Absolute and the Prime for the regular Ravage Rake. Enforcement is also very, very important for this one. Comma Slash as well. Wheel of Fortune, this is your bread and butter skill right here. Obsidian Ashes is the absolute last skill you can bother learning at all for it. This one, even you learn Ravage Rake before this one as far as from a PvE standpoint. Corrupt Ground, just don't learn at all. It's completely useless for the most part. And Lunacy of Adir, extremely, extremely important. Obviously, accessing Succession, we get our 3 Succession skills here. Your E-Buff, Twilight Dash, and Legacy pulled over from your Awakening kit. And then you want to have your maxed out passives as well. The Nocturne is also going to be important for the PvE combo that we're going to be using. So again, those are the skills you absolutely want to have. The ones you can sacrifice, Obsidian Ashes and the Ravage Rake to a certain degree can be skipped over at least for a little bit of while. If you're still trying to make it work in your lower skill points, I strongly recommend just grinding out the skill points and get it done, but you could actually hold back a little bit on Slanted Balance if you had to. And then, as earlier mentioned, the Unveiled Dagger is just important for the attack speed. So next up, let's go ahead and just talk about our crystals for a bit here. So a couple things you want to look at, since I have both a PvE and PvP set for it. You want to first of all calculate where your accuracy is going to be based on what your hit rate is for where you're grinding. Now I have a link to a copy of Big and Shiny's accuracy calculator in the description down below. You can check that out, punch in your numbers here. What you're going to want to do is take your main hand accuracy, pop that into the thing there, your crystals, your add-ons, and what have you from each of the ones there. Decide what you need for your accuracy from there for where you're grinding and find out. Why do I mention that? Because for my PvE setup, I don't need Elcars. The Ignore All Resistance is the same regardless. The additional accuracy would do nothing for me at any current grind spot in the game, and I only use the Black Star in PvE as I use a Penzarka for PvP, so I don't need any additional accuracy to hit 100% hit rate at any grinding zone as it stands, which saves me a little bit of money from running Elcars in both Zarka and Black Star as well. Offhand, the best in slot's going to be your Corrupted Magic Crystals. No matter how you slice it, you absolutely want to run these. There's no way to get around that. Kind of the same boat with the gloves. You are going to have Jin Vipers in these no matter what. Now, moving from here, we have some different options. First up, I want to point out that we have Odalita coming out very soon after that. It's not currently out, and at that point, you're going to be able to upgrade your Dandelion so that it will use a Garmos Heart and give it 2 crystal slots in addition to a bit of crit damage as well, added once it is upgraded. Those crystal slots are going to change what your options are. You're likely going to want to go with 2 Hooms in your Dandy slots, 2 Hooms in your Helm slot, and then probably RBF Adamantines in the boots. Now, if you notice, Odalita is not out, and I do have the RBF Adamantines here. You would normally have special attack evasion here, or possibly Jin Kobe's or Bon Kobe's, depending if you wanted the HP or damage reduction if you're purely PvE. But the special attack evasion is going to help out a lot in PvP and do virtually nothing in PvE unless you are, for some reason, constantly getting knocked down in CC. Now, I have the Adamantines in here as I was grinding a ton of Abandoned Monastery previously, and it completely changed the trash per hour, adding these these into my boots. Since you just get knocked down absolutely constantly in that spot without them. So that helped out quite a bit, sacrificing just a little bit of evasion there, but again, irrelevant for the most part in PvE. Like I said, these will come down to the Dandy slot once Odalita's out from here, and then you can run your special attack evasion or your Jin or Bon Kobe's, whatever you kind of prefer from there. Now, this is kind of okay, just fine for PvP and pretty good for PvE. There are technically some other sets that I suppose would be, in theory, better in PvE, but you don't want to not run Hooms, at least for this setup. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the skill add-ons that you're running. Again, this is pretty much geared towards PvE. You'll note that I do have a little bit of PvP attack on Wheel of Fortune as well, just because there's not much other great things to slot there, and also that boost is going to be relevant for when you're defending your spot or something along those lines. Anyways, now there's plenty of variants you could run to this. This is what I'm using because it's going to coincide with the PvE skill rotation that I'm using as well, which we'll cover in the next section. There are, as I'll mention in the skill rotation, some other things you can do. People like to start their combo sometimes when mobs are grouping up with Comma Slash, having that fully charged. I've run that before as well, but in that scenario, you may want to swap out something like Unveiled Dagger or Airstrike with the Comma Slash and have some add-ons for that. But, you know, you can kind of tweak it from there. This is kind of an outline of what I'm doing, at least at the moment. I have used different ones many, many different times. So Airstrike, we've got critical hit and attack speed on it, slanted balance, accuracy, and attack speed. Unveiled Dagger's got monster damage and crit rate on it as well. The Wheel of Fortune has that PvP attack we mentioned, plus attack speed on there. Lunacy's got monster damage and attack speed, and then we have Spirit Legacy, also with monster, and then it has an all defense plus 10. So pretty basic for this. It falls in line with the skill rotation very perfectly, and you'll see when we cover that why we're using specific ones on Airstrike and Unveiled Dagger for it. But again, you can tweak these to however you want. Ultimately, you want to just be focusing on getting your attack speed, bit of accuracy, critical hit rate, and then, of course, PvE-wise, you want that monster damage in there as well. If you want to be a little more PvP focused, you could potentially pick up a few more and still run it in your PvE set, and it would be totally fine. So with that covered, let's go ahead and take a look at the skill rotation. Okay, let's go ahead and go over each one. We see them on screen here listed, each skill that we're going to do. Then we'll kind of go through them, and I'll talk about some other choices and things you have moving on from here. So your, for the most part, basic combo, we want to lead with Unveiled Dagger. That's going to get us our attack speed going from the skill. We've got the skill add-on attack speed getting added in as we move into Airstrike, and also gets that critical hit rate bonus that we applied onto Unveiled Dagger as well. So after Unveiled into Airstrike, then we're going to Wheel of Fortune, directly into Lunacy, and then we're going to use the Nocturne slide into from Lunacy, as opposed to just using the skill Nocturne. If you're not familiar with that, it's right mouse button while using the end animation of Lunacy of Vidir. We'll show it in just a second here. So this gives you an instant teleport from behind. When you do that, you cannot use the right mouse button attack that Nocturne has. You have to use the forward dash only. So keep that in mind as well. We're going to be using the forward attack. So you're going to press W from there. Then you'll have your Spirit Legacy. From here, you're going to use Pervasive Darkness with its flow. If you're off the group of mobs a little bit, you can always throw another Unveiled Dagger to reposition you there. It's likely that you'll need to reapply your Unveiled Dagger attack speed buff from here. At any rate, then you're going to use your Termination skill along with its flow, and from there you should pretty much be clear to go. You have some options if mobs survive from here. Specifically, I will typically, if they've got a hit or left or I need some cleanup, I'll just throw a Twilight Dash in directly after the Termination set, and then I'm back behind them if need to be, and you can kind of restart your combo from there. You'll note that a couple things aren't going to be up. You can also, this is why I mentioned leaving Ravage Rake off. I don't use Ravage Rake very often at all myself, especially grinding in Secrea, but the mobs for the most part are dead prior to that Twilight Dash. Possibly they need just the Twilight Dash and on my way to my next pack. If that's not the case, you could throw Ravage Rake in just before you Twilight Dash to reset the skill rotation from there if needed. This is really going to be dependent on what your AP is in relation to where you're grinding, because obviously higher AP, you'll be able to finish with this combo much sooner. So you have those for cleanup options. If you do run into a situation where you're doing that, you can Twilight Dash afterwards, and then from here, you'll have your Wheel of Fortune back up and immediately just give it a quick tap of Comma Sylvia Slash. This should give you just enough time to get your Nocturne back up by throwing, or excuse me, your Lunacy of Vidir back up by throwing that Comma Slash in between the Wheel of Fortune and the Lunacy of Vidir. So that'll be back up, and then you can just continue the combo from there if necessary. Also, just to note, if you're getting this far through the combo, you may want to reconsider where you're grinding, because you really shouldn't be needing to hit the mobs this many times. So now that we've covered each of the skills, let's just go ahead and do them so you'll get an idea of how it's going to look. Obviously, we don't have mobs here, so keep that in mind. So we're going to Unveil Dagger into Airstrike, Wheel of Fortune, Lunacy, right mouse button our Nocturne forward, Spirit Legacy, and we should be good from there. We could continue if needed with whatever cleanup skills we have. That's kind of up to you if you need it. But like I said, you may want to second guess where you're grinding if you have to continue from that point. So that's it. I recommend just practicing that. Go to wherever you're at. Don't pop your loot skull directly away, Star's End or whatever it is for you. Practice that a few times, kind of getting it down, then pop your loot skull and kind of get to town with it. You can modify this a bit. Again, this is in line with the add-ons that we're using so that they match up appropriately and we get the buffs that we want to get to maximize our PvE damage. This particular setup with 285 Tet Black Star and Pen Kudum, I have hit 5.1 and change trash at Secrea. With a little bit higher is possible. I've seen some other players hitting 5.2 and above with a 285 setup just where I am. I haven't been able to do that. It could also be because they were Korean players. You get a little bit of that crit damage added in with the Odalita patch once Garmoth's Heart goes into that Dandy. I don't know, but I haven't quite cracked 5.2 personally myself. Still working on that. So it works very well. This combo works there. I do it at Star's End, but at Star's End at this AP level, the monsters are dead way before you get through that combo. So just give it some practice. And like I said, if you're finding that you're trying to go through this combo twice for it, or you're really having to extend the combo going well beyond, you know, that Ravage Rake or Comma Slash that we added in, you may want to second guess if that's the best spot for you to be grinding. You might be struggling a bit in AP. As far as the actual items that we want to use, this is pretty standard across the board for what you want as a DK. What you do want to use is simple cron meal in any instance where you have 100% hit rate. If you are grinding in a zone where you don't have 100% hit rate, again, referencing that calculator we talked about in the description, you're better off using your exquisite cron meal. Obviously, 30 monster damage is great. This has some really great stats on it across the board. However, if you don't have a hit rate, and I'm talking even if you're at 97% crit rate, you are better off using an exquisite cron meal since it has additional accuracy to increase your hit rate at that zone you're grinding, then you are picking up this extra monster damage. Hitting them 97% of the time with 30 monster damage is much worse than hitting them 100% of the time without the damage. Villa buff is Villa buff. We're familiar with that. If Vel's Heart is what you're using, or Destruction Spirit Stone or whatever, you're always obviously going to have that. As far as drafts and elixirs, you want to run Frenzy Draft for the most part. Now, there's an exception to this that I'll mention in just a second, but your Frenzy Draft is going to be your best in slot. Again, we have additional accuracy off this guy. We've got monster damage. The big thing is that this is recovering your HP +3 per hit. Awakening DK has virtually non-existent sustain. Technically, you have Ravage Rake and Lunacy of Vidir in succession that have some, but again, we're trying to eliminate using Ravage Rake since the damage is not amazing, especially compared to the animation speed. It will slow down your pack clearing whenever you have to use it, so we kind of want to avoid that in our PvE combo as is. And it's also not that amazing as far as life regen goes. We take a lot of damage already, so this is your main source for just staying alive in that regard. Now, with the crystal setup we're using, along with a black star, that does leave one little hole for us. We don't have a maximum crit, which we do want as well. I am currently out of them, but they're on my hot bar down there. You can see Spirit Perfume Elixir. This is going to cover a couple things for you. I mean, HP is HP, but it gives us that +5 critical hit rate. You do get MP +3 on every good hit. For Succession Dark Knight, that's really irrelevant. Even without this thing, you just never run out of MP. It's not an issue whatsoever, but you know, it is something. You'll just have infinite MP whenever you're running it, and this gives us our max critical hit rate as well, which is kind of nice. Now, there's another option you can run, more specifically maybe at Star's End. If you have the DP to survive and you don't need the Frenzy Draft, which could be very likely at places that are not abandoned Monastery or Secrea, You don't necessarily have to use it, and if you want to save a little bit of money or you're lazy, I do this quite often, which is why I have them. Just run Giant's Draft. This will give you max crit with your setup as is, which means you don't have to use your perfume elixirs, since they can get a little bit pricey. You're using 3 of those an hour. They're around 700k or so each, so that's a little bit. And obviously frenzy drafts, if you're not grinding Secrea, you're not making your own frenzy drafts, they can get a bit pricey as well. These guys are much cheaper for it and gives you kind of a lazy way to get through it. Are you going to make record breaking trash with this? No. Even at Star's End, it does have that special attack damage, which can be nice when you're hitting the mobs for the extra bonus damage while they're on the ground from the crystal, but it's going to slow you down a bit when you're not doing that in general. So Frenzy is best in slot here. This is definitely an option. It's going to be close, very comparable to it, but a little bit worse than your setup with Frenzy. Just a nice cheap alternative for it without having to use those spirit perfumes alongside it with the max crit. So that pretty much covers it for it. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know in the comments down below. We'll go through those a bit and answer any questions that you have for setups that you're using. But that should be just about everything. And if you guys like this kind of video, want to see some more kind of stuff with this, or maybe like a brief PvP combo type setups and knockdowns and that sort of thing against different classes, I've been considering doing that, but more interested if that's something you guys would be interested in or not. Just let me know in the comments down below. That's going to be it for this one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when new videos do go live. And if you'd like to catch me playing live, there is a link to my Twitch page in the description down below as well. Head on over there and drop a follow so you get notifications for that. With that said, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.